Hey everybody, it's Vanessa, the Crafty Gemini. Welcome to episode 133 of WIP Wednesday episodes. Today we're going to be doing a little demo, and I'm here knitting. I was trying to get an extra round in on my Ranunculus sweater. Welcome everybody. Let's make sure technology stuff is working, that y'all can see me and hear me. I see a bunch of friends tuning in already. Hi Vivian from Indiana. We got Grace in the house from Long Island. Peggy from Minnesota. Awesome. Hi, Mary, tuning in from Middle Tennessee via Central California. Awesome. Monroe's on the lake. That's Josie, tuning in from Deltona, Florida, which is east of us. G. Walton tuning in from Maryland. We got Amanda in the house from Middleburg. We got Maureen from Texas in the house. Hi, Miss Deborah, tuning in from south of us in Port St. Lucie. Let's see. And Rachel from Nashville, Tennessee. I see a bunch of you are on here. Good. So hopefully y'all can see me and hear me. And I know this doesn't have to do with sewing and quilting, and I haven't done an episode of Fiber Fridays in, I don't know, since last summer. It's been almost a year, I guess. So I wanted to just show y'all what I've been working on, because I know several of you, a bunch of you that watch my sewing and quilting stuff also maybe knit and or crochet. So let's go ahead and give them my over-the-shoulder camera shot just so I can share with them how proud I am of my progress. Hi, Yolanda. Thanks for tuning in. Let me try and set this up. Since it's a darker yarn, I know it's not going to show up quite as easily as usual, but go ahead and give them my over-the-shoulder camera shot. My little Ranunculus sweater here, those of you that used to tune into my Fiber Friday episodes, I would do them like once a month, and I would specifically focus on knitting or crochet and stuff like that. Is this camera not on? Oh, we having lagging issues. I know that the program that we use, we just had an update right before we went live. Anyway, this is my little ranunculus. Look at the detailing on that. Oh, there it is. All right, so look at this, y'all. It looks little, I know, but that's because it hasn't been blocked and, you know, stretched out and opened up so that you could see the lace in here. This is probably the, if not the most popular project on Ravelry. It's definitely one of the most popular. So it's a super... I mean, they say it's so easy. It's beginner friendly. People make a dozen of them. I started last year and I messed it up when I got to the separation of the sleeves. And I will say this year I picked it up again and I was like, I'm going to do a good job, count all my stitches, do everything right. And I still had to restart like 5 times. And I kind of, you know what I'm doing. So if that happens to you with this or any other project, just don't give up on it. I went ahead and just did the little short sleeve one. So it's baby, like a little baby cap sleeve. Of course, you know, I'm going to spread that out and stretch it out. I'm using, for anyone interested, I used, I think, half of a ball because I had like messed it up last year. I tried to undo it and then it got tangled, so I just cut it and started again. I had to do that a few times. So I used whatever I had left at the top here, and then I recently, somewhere here around the sleeves, I put in a new ball. And this is just, it's like an affordable yarn called Palette. It's a fingering weight, and it's from Knit Picks. So it's 231 yards and 50-gram balls like this, and that way I don't have to rewind it. It just, you can knit directly or crochet right off of the ball. The color, if anyone's interested, is Lingonberry Heather, and it's 100% Peruvian Highland wool. Okay, which means this will felt. If I do what I need to do to it to get it to felt. But anyways, let me set this aside. I am making good progress on it. I need to work more on the body to keep it going and add some length to it. But I'm proud of myself because the trickiest parts are done and I didn't mess up. I counted all my stitches and everything was accurate. All right, so let's get started with today's demo here. Oh, thank you, Monique. She says, hope you had a nice birthday. I did. Happy birthday to everyone, all the Geminis out there. My birthday was last Saturday, June 1st. I'm a whopping 4-1 this year. A solid 41 years old. All right, so we are doing a demo today, and hopefully you'll follow along. This is my latest tutorial. It's posted to my YouTube channel already. Step-by-step video tutorial on how to make what I'm calling my little pencil pod zip pouches. If you're still scared or intimidated by zippers, or you're just one of those people that emails me in all capital letters, why do you always put zippers in everything? I can't stand it. You know, I get some nasty emails about zippers sometimes, but this is such a beginner-friendly project. You don't have to worry about those junky ends that we oftentimes get when we make more squared or triangular-based zippered pouches. It's flat. And you might be thinking, you know, you can't really store too much in this because it's flat, but let me show you. This is for a ton of different things, okay? You can put like feminine hygiene products in here. You can put pencils, markers, crayons for little kids that are going to be starting kindergarten this year. Look how many crochet hooks I have stuffed in here. I decided to put in crochet hooks. There's a couple tapestry needles. I have different types of crochet hooks, large chunky plastic ones. The ones from my kit, I have a Crafty Gemini set of crochet hooks that we sell in our online shop at craftygemini.com. I have one from Furls Crochet, which is bigger and kind of more ergonomic. Similar length, okay? I have metal, plastic ones, all different ones, and they all fit in here. I threw in some stitch markers and a couple tapestry needles in here as well. You could even throw in a little bundle of scrap yarn. I mean, and even though it's flat, I think this just takes up so much less space in a purse or at the bottom of a project bag than a wider, more three-dimensional zip pouch does. So consider giving it a try. Just choose fabrics and colors that will accommodate whoever is going to be using it for whatever purpose, and I think you're going to be all set. You can see I have a bunch. They're so easy to make. All right, so we're going to go over how to make one today. Again, I have included the step-by-step video tutorial, the slow version, you know, well, not as slow as a live version, but the edited version. And real quick, I know you all probably saw it. I can't remember if I saw anybody post in the chat. This is the Westchester Dolman top that I made in the new sew along. So if you're still participating or following along, definitely post pictures in the Sewing Clothes with Crafty Gemini Facebook group so we can see your tops. And then for those of you that want to learn how to make this lady's top out of stretch knit fabrics, the link is in the description box below as well. So I just wanted to throw that in there. Wendy says it can hold a lot of candy. That's definitely one way to do it. All right. Wow, Krista says I'll be celebrating the 41st anniversary of my 29th later this month. Awesome. Happy birthday to you. Okay. All right, so here's what we need. Easy peasy. One rectangle. I believe this was cut 8 by 9 inches, but again, the full step-by-step instructions are in the description box below. 8 by 9, and I fused it to light fusible batting. You could use regular batting and quilt it. You could use a lighter version of a fusible fleece, something like that, just to give it a little body. Then for the lining, I have 2 pieces that measure 4 inches by 9. That's it. That's the fabric to make the inside and the outside fully professionally finished. There's no raw edges. I get that a lot on zippered pouches. Are there any raw edges? Is it raw inside? Nope. Everything is lined. Okay? Then you only need 1 zipper, but I have 2 here because some of you probably already know what I'm about to do. I think I want to use the pink zipper tape and zipper teeth, but I'm going to put the purple one, the purple zipper pull on this one. Okay? So here's how I'm going to do that. I'm just going to cut the metal stops off of the end of this one, which is now going to allow me to slip that off, and I'll do the same thing to this one so that I can pull off the purple zipper pull. I've done this so many times in tutorials, on WIP Wednesday episodes. So now I'm going to take the purple one, open this up slightly, feed it in through here, through the rounded portion, the wider side. One side halfway in. Y'all know that that's the trick, right? The other side halfway in, and then I grab it and I push down. Ta-da! Easy peasy. And before I lose this one, let me go ahead and just slip the pink one on the purple one. No fancy tools, no fork in sight. By the time you do this so many times like I have and you get it down, you figure out what the little wiggle is and ta-da! We have now put a pop of contrasting color on the zippers. So this one I'll use for a different project later on. This is the one I'm going to use for this one. Now, y'all know I like to use longer zippers than what the pattern calls for, just because it's going to give me more wiggle room at the beginning and end to top stitch the second side. That's mostly it, okay? To top stitch the second side. If you don't know what that means, keep on watching, because when we get there, you're going to see why. Okay, so I have my zipper foot put onto my sewing machine, okay? This is what mine looks like. Yours might look a little different depending on the make and model and the style. The zipper foot on my semi-industrial machine looks totally different than this one, but this is the one that I have. You can also check your user manual so you know exactly, which foot that came in your accessory pack it is that you need to install. And I always, not always, but most of the time clip it on so that the left side is what's exposed, okay? Let's grab my zipper. I'm going to position the zipper pretty side face down onto the pretty side of the whatever's the exterior fabric that has been fused to that fusible batting or fleece or whatever, okay? And I'm leaving so that I have extra sticking out here. Whoop. Yeah. I was focusing more on the sewing machine, my bad. Okay, so on the 9-inch, not the 8-inch, the 9-inch edge of the exterior fabric, I have the zipper teeth going down onto it. So pretty side of the zipper to pretty side of the fabric, and I have the extra split, like I'm splitting the difference the same amount here and here, okay? I could even scoot it over a little more that way, since that's the side that still has the zipper stop on it. Then I'm aligning the zipper tape with the top 9-inch edge of that exterior fabric, and I'm going to put a couple of my plastic clips. All right. Okay. And then, because the first seam for me, this is how I like to teach beginners or those that don't feel super confident with zippers, I sew the first one narrow, so I don't use my full seam allowance, okay? In other words, I keep the needle in the default position for the foot, which is in the middle, that's fine. The length, I'm going to shorten it to 2 millimeters just to make sure it's, oh, actually, no, this is the first one. This is basting. So we can go up to like 3 millimeters for this one. And then instead of using the full seam allowance on my zipper foot, your zipper foot may vary. Some zipper feet give you like 1/4 of an inch is the full seam allowance, meaning if you're aligning the edge of the fabric on the right side edge of the foot, it might be 1/4 of an inch from the needle or 3/8 of an inch from the needle. That's usually what I see on home sewing machines is that. But I'm going to go about half. Why? Because a narrower seam allowance is going to be hidden in the seam allowance. I still need to go in and sew a chunk of my lining fabric. So I want this one to be narrower than my true seam allowance so I don't end up with little stitches that are showing out in the end, okay? So I'm going about half of that seam allowance and stitching just straight down this way. I'm getting close to where the zipper pull is, so I'm going to stop with the needle in, lift the presser foot up just so I can slide this out my way, and I don't have to worry about kind of little jagged jumps in the seam because of the bulk of that metal zipper pull. This is like so easy, y'all. Anybody can do this. And then you just stitch till you get past the edge of where the fabric is, okay? Easy peasy. That was the first seam. You're just connecting the exterior fabric to the zipper. Now grab one of the rectangles from your lining fabric, 4" by 9, and I'm going to flip it on top of the zipper, pretty side face down. So in other words, the zipper we just sewed to the exterior panel is going to be sandwiched in between 2 fabric layers. I'm going to put this right here, and I'm going to slide that zipper pull off the edge so it's not in my way. Put a couple clips. Again, you're lining the edges up, and make sure that the fabric lines up on the sides of the exterior fabric. There's 1, 2, and 3. And just a quick tip, if you put the fabric on top, because it doesn't have any interfacing on it, it will tend to kind of walk a little bit as you sew if the fabric is on top. If you wanted to, you could put clips and stitch it from this way. Because the fabric underneath isn't interfaced, if it's under, it will feed in a little bit more smoothly without getting distorted. You'll see what I mean in a minute. But if it's on top and you wonder why, what happened, don't think that maybe you cut the fabric wrong if you were really accurate and precise in your cutting. It's because the fabric on top, it's not a super tight weave if you're using just regular quilting cotton. And because it's on top, it tends to move more than the fabric that's underneath that's stabilized, okay? So now I'm stitching through all 3 layers. This is going to be the final seam that connects this zipper to these 2 pieces of fabric. So I want to shorten my stitch length to 2.2, 2.0. Depending on your machine, if it doesn't like a lot of bulk, you can keep it a little bit more elongated, like stretched out to 2.4, 2.5. I can go down to 2.0 and it will still feed smoothly. But in that range where it's still a short stitch, but your machine still likes it and makes it easy to feed through. Now for the seam allowance, I'm using the full zipper foot seam allowance now. That's what you usually hear me say in my videos. The full zipper foot seam allowance means the needle in the default position, and I'm using the full right side edge of the zipper foot to align it with my fabric. So I'm going to zoom in a little so you can see what I mean. The fabric edge is right along here, okay? And you'll see that the fabric kind of wants to bubble up a little bit. That's because of what I told you. The fabric on top is not interfaced or stabilized. If you wanted to use up more interfacing, or you wanted to stabilize a really loose weave of a cotton fabric, you could always interface this. But for this project, I don't find that it's necessary. Save your pricey interfacings, you know, for projects where it really matters a little bit more. So you'll see when I get to the end here, I've stretched the fabric out by about maybe 1/8 or 1/16 of an inch. And that just happens because the fabric is not stabilized and it's on top, okay? But no big deal. I mean, it's like 1/16 of an inch that it sticks out there, okay? So now, that's one side. If you can do that, you can make any zipper pouch, okay? Awesome. Windless Original says, I really like the way this pouch comes together. I will be making many more. I love to hear it. It really is an easy one, especially for those of you that are maybe teaching kids or new sewists over the summer. This is a perfect project, and everybody can use a little pouch like this, okay? So now that I have that one there, I'm going to press this. I was just like, what do I do next? Let me grab my steam iron. Lots of steam. This is my big fancy Laura Star iron, y'all. I like to put these two fabrics. First, I'll press it away from the zipper tape first. Whoop. If you have a tailor's clapper, you know you need to grab it. Then I'm going to fold it down and away. Both of those fabrics should be down and away from the zipper teeth. I don't know why, but people freak out all the time when they see me hit the zipper, a number 3 craft nylon zipper with an iron. It's not going to melt. It's not going to melt. You can blast the steam right over top of it. Oftentimes I get questions like, what zipper is that? I saw you hit it with an iron. You can do it. It could be metal. It could be nylon. It could be zippered by the yard. They're not going to melt at the temperatures of an iron, so you'll be good to go. Okay, don't worry about that. Drying up a little wet spot there. Okay, so now I'm going to top stitch. And the top stitching is going to go here, through all of these layers, just to help keep the exterior and that lining fabric down away from the zipper, okay? Easy peasy. We're doing the same thing we just did. We're just going to lengthen the stitch a little bit because now we're going through bulkier layers and it's top stitching. So it's what I would call a top stitch instead of a construction stitch, right? If it's a construction seam, something that's going to get a lot of wear and tear and use, we want to go short so the stitches are more together and it will hold the connection better, okay? If it's just decorative, you can go bigger because that's not going to affect the integrity of the actual zipper itself, all right? So I'm going to lengthen to 3 millimeters. And I'm aligning everything. There's a little groove on the underside of your zipper that's designed to go over top of the zipper teeth. So that's what I'm aligning. Every zipper teeth or zipper foot is a little bit different, but just keep it nice and straight there and go down this one side edge. Yeah, Maureen is asking, she says, you have steam. That's a different iron than you normally use. Yeah, depending on what I'm working on. When I'm working on a bunch of projects and filming classes and things like that, this is the fancy Laura Star iron. It has like a whole, I can't unplug it right now, but it has a big base like that and it has a whole water reservoir. Y'all know that we have a well here where we live, and I don't put water in my regular iron. This one. Okay, so I just use this one when I can press, you know, usual projects, but because I was just working on something else and I had the other one plugged up, I just left it for the live. Okay, all right, so now this guy is done so far. Okay, now you flip it this way, looking good, and we're almost done. You're going to take the bottom edge of the exterior quilt, or not quilted, but fused, like the fusible exterior panel, and bring it up to the loose edge, the side of the zipper tape that hasn't been sewn yet to anything. Bring it up there, match up the top edges, and put your clips. And you're going to do the same exact thing we just did, just do it again. So if you recall, when we sew the exterior panel, we lengthen the stitch length and we go half of that zipper foot seam allowance. Because we don't want this, that's not the final seam. The final one is always when I add the lining to it. Okay, so same exact thing. I'm placing it under here and using half of that zipper foot seam allowance, about, just go smaller than the full amount so the stitches are hidden. I don't even back stitch because there's going to be more stitches, you know, more seams that are going to intersect with it. So it's not like it's going to fall apart. Okay, so this is what it looks like now. I can't see the pretty side of my fabric on the exterior, but if I flip it, I see one of my lining panels. Okay, so now I need to take the other lining panel and place it on that side. So when you place it pretty side face down, it should be pretty sides of the lining panels touching. Okay, and I'm putting it up top here, aligned with the top edge. Make sure the fabrics line up on the side so everything is even. Jules is asking, great question. Hi, Vanessa, your top stitch is about 1/4 of an inch from the zipper teeth, not 1/8. That's right. My top stitching is about 1/4 of an inch down. Depending on where I'm doing the top stitching, like if I'm making a strap handle for a bag, I'll do 1/8 of an inch closer to the outer edge. If you're top stitching a pocket or something to the sides, you know, where you're just attaching something, I'll top stitch at 1/8 of an inch or something. But here, because I'm top stitching with the zipper foot on and I want the zipper teeth to run underneath on that groove, I align it with what my zipper foot is designed for. So that's why it ends up being further over, okay? You could clip your zipper foot to the right side and then do it from the other side, but I find that it's just easier, more consistent for people who are not super confident just freehanding seams to use the actual groove on the zipper foot, okay? All right, and now, since I'm attaching the lining, I'm going with the full zipper foot seam allowance and I'm shortening my stitch length because this is a construction seam, the final construction seam for this edge of the zipper tape. And if your fabric starts to bubble up too much or it's getting super distorted, you can always lengthen your stitch length a little bit more to make the machine pull through more layers as it stitches, okay? Okay. So now we've stitched all the pieces. But you remember after we stitched the two, like an exterior and a lining piece on the other side, we had to top stitch. So we got to do the same thing here. So let's grab the steam. And you don't have to use steam here. Like I said, you could just use a dry iron. I should have blasted this before I sprayed water all over my project. But anyway. Ooh, and it's fixing a storm here. Y'all hear that thunder? So push all the fabric away from the zipper. Okay, now to get the other side of the exterior, you got to open the zipper. So you got to reach in here and push that zipper pull all the way to the other edge. But because I cut off my pull or my stop, my metal stop from this edge, I can't let it go all the way. Otherwise, the zipper pull is going to come flying off, okay? So I'm going to send it just until I come out here. You see what I mean? If I keep going, it's just going to fly off. But if you didn't swap off your zipper pull like I did, you'd still have a metal stop there, so you could go until it stops. All right, so now let's grab this one. I'm pulling the zipper teeth out and away from the fabric layers so that they can all go that way, and I'll give it a press so we can top stitch. Again, don't worry about pressing or steaming that zipper teeth. Okay, looks good and flat. So now we need to top stitch. This is the trickiest part, but if you started off with a longer zipper, it's not going to be tricky at all. We have top stitching here. I need to come in and top stitch here. So because I have a little bit extra, and I can even pull a little bit more there. If I pull it off, it's no big deal, right? Because y'all already saw how I can easily put it back on, but just save myself the extra step. So open it up, and this extra zipper tape here is what is allowing me to keep this flat and not be fighting to get my zipper foot in this corner. If this was the end of the zipper and you were working with a shorter one, it is going to be so hard to get up in this corner. But because I have extra, I can get that out the way, flip this down, align the zipper teeth in the groove of the zipper foot, lengthen my stitch length because this is top stitching, and stitch straight down. Okay, so that's why sometimes we use a longer zipper than we actually need. I know it seems wasteful, but trust me, it's a hack because it makes sewing the zipper in way, way easier. Okay, I'm gonna give it another little press because every time I sew, I like to press. All right, so now, let's see what we're working with. Okay, so now we wanna go pretty side to pretty side with the lining, okay? Together, this way. For this, because there's no bulk and I'm not using any pieces that have fusible fleece or anything, I use pins. So sometimes I get asked, why do sometimes you use pins and sometimes you use plastic clips? If it's bulky layers or a lot of layers, I'll use clips, okay? Because it helps kind of grip them down and chomp them down for then going to the sewing machine. If it's just fabric by itself, because it's so much lighter than any fabric that's been interfaced, I don't bother, okay? I just use pins because they hold pretty good. And let me make sure this is going to be in the middle. Okay. Let's put a couple pins. We're going to need to leave an opening in the lining, okay, so that we can flip the whole thing right side out. Jackie says she puts a clip at the end of the zipper if she cuts it like that to keep it from popping off. That's a good idea. You can also stitch like we often do when we're making bags, just stitch back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and the thread buildup will create a stop and will keep it from flying off. So, you know, lots of different ways. Or don't touch it, and then it won't fly off, which I did a pretty good job of so far. All right, so let me grab my fabric marker first, and I'm going to leave an opening on the long edge here. I usually leave about 4 inches. And this area that I've marked here is just going to be open, somewhere from here to here. Just leave yourself a big enough opening that you can reach in there and grab it. All right, so now I'm going to stitch down the side. Actually, I'm not even going to bother down the side. I'm going to stitch here to here. And okay, so I'm going from here to here and back stitching at beginning and end, and then skip this space, okay? And then pick up here, back stitch, and back stitch on the end. So you're really just sewing 2 little chunks, making sure to leave this area open. But because the zipper's already done, let's get rid of our zipper foot and put on the regular, I call it the universal foot. Cut this guy down. And I'm using a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. That's just something simple. It's going to give me, with the needle in the center position, the exact seam allowance of what the edge of my presser foot is, okay? I'm going to back stitch beginning. And back stitch at the beginning of my mark where I'm going to leave it open. Then I'll skip this space. Come back over here. Back stitch again to pick up. You definitely want to make sure to have some back stitches right where the opening is, because when you pull on that to open it and flip everything right side out, if you didn't back stitch there, you're going to be pulling stitches and you're just not going to get a nice clean finish in the end. So always remember that. Hi Jules, she says, me again. Vanessa, have you got a tutorial for the basket you're using for your clips? Absolutely. This is, what is it called, y'all? My teensy fabric basket something tutorial. It's on my YouTube channel. You can definitely check it out. Just type in on YouTube Crafty Gemini teensy basket or something like that and it'll pop right up. All right, so now I'm going to go like this and I'm going to finger crease this seam open first. Oh, it's storming. Let's hope the power don't go out, because that's what happens here. Hurricane season. My birthday always kicks off hurricane season, y'all. June 1st. The fun begins. Storms and storms and storms. But really, we need the rain because my garden has been struggling. Been out there watering every single day. All right, so I finger creased it open just to make it a little easier, and now I can go in and press with the iron, okay? You'll notice that where we have the opening, where we've left it unstitched, it kind of wants to fold out in the same amount as the seam allowance. So if you tug on it just to keep it a little taut, then you can press with your iron, and you'll see how nicely it stays. Ta-da! All right, so now we need to One, open the zipper a little bit more than that. I'm just sliding the zipper pull a little bit more over, closer to the middle, okay? And then I want to center. Notice, okay, you'll notice that the exterior panel that has the interfacing is bigger, a little bit bigger. If we center this really good, you'll see it. It's a little bit bigger than the lining, which if you've made any of my pouches and bags, you know that's what we aim for, right? So that the lining sits nicer and flatter in there. So that's what you want to go for, okay? If you make one and it doesn't quite, or the lining doesn't quite sit as nicely as you'd like on the inside, where do you think you can change to adjust for that in your next one? Anybody? I'm going to take a sip of water and see. See if my students have been paying attention and watching my videos. I'm going to center it as best as I can right there. And I'm going to give it a good press to get some nice creases on either side and clap it. Linda says you can see the storm behind you. Welcome to Florida. Okay. Y'all know I'm from Miami. We'll be doing hurricane parties and everything. Yes, Windless Original said it, seam allowance, and specifically this seam allowance here that we just sewed in the lining. If instead of using 3/8 of an inch, you went up to 1/2 of an inch, it would fit a little bit snugger and like smoother on the inside of the finished pouch. So know that that's where you can make that little quick fix. Which really you didn't have to wait until the next one. If you see right here that you do this and it's not a little smaller, you can just pull up on this and stitch a little bit further down, right? To eat up more in your seam allowance, and that would work good. Okay, so now let's see where we're at. That looks good. My 4-inch circle, and this doesn't have to be a 4-inch circle, but one is what I do here. Make sure I feel the metal zipper pull. It's in there. Good. Now I can proceed to start chopping stuff off, because if that zipper pull is to the outside, you're not going to have a working zipper pull, and we don't want that, okay? So make sure that it's somewhere in the middle, in there. Then you can trim away the excess zipper tape. Those extra little inches that really made it easier for us to top stitch that second side. And I'm trying to think, did I top stitch the second side? Yes, I did. I showed y'all that. Yeah, I don't even want to know how many pouches I've made before where I'm like, done. And I'm like, oh, I only top stitched one side of it. No good. Okay, so now I have a 4-inch diameter circle. You can use anything. I mean, it could be, these washers are too small, but you could use like a weight, a little saucer, you know, just to help you get a curve. Depending on how tight you get the curve or how angled, you're going to end up with a slightly different look. So this is the one that I used before, that I did in the tutorial with the 4-inch circle and a really narrow seam allowance. That's what I got. You can see this one kind of peeks out a little bit more here. It depends on how, where your seam allowance goes off the edge as well, okay? You can see this one was one of my first prototypes that I was working on, and I didn't angle it further down. It was like a bigger saucer that I was using, so the curve is only along the top edge and doesn't come down here. So this is an option for some of you. I've seen some of you make it already, but you didn't curve the ends because you wanted to make sure to use, or to keep and preserve, the most amount of room inside of your pouch. And so this is, I think, a good medium, like a happy medium for it, where instead of just being a long rectangular pouch, you get that slightly curved look, but you still get a longer spacing in here to fit, you know, crochet hooks or markers or colored pencils that might need a little extra height. Okay, so you can play around with the look. It doesn't have to be, you know, exactly how I show you. Okay, so now this guy, I have a 4-inch circle here, and I'm just going to place it right there. I'm going to draw on here with a pen just so it shows up better on camera. If you're going to be making a bunch of these, instead of using just regular paper template, you can cut it out of like Quilter's acrylic template plastic. You can use, what else? What was I going to say? Oh, like cardstock. You could use a manila folder, you know, something with a little bit more body, so it will hold up better for you to make your markings. Okay, so slight little curve there. Do the same thing to the other side. You just want to be consistent, right? You don't want one curve to be tighter and the other one wider on the opposite end of the same project. Just be consistent. Whatever you do on one edge, do it on the other, at least in the same project. And then you can play around with the curves that you end up doing in another one, you know, just so that either end is the same. It's consistent. Ooh, these afternoon stormies. Okay. Couple things. You could stitch to the inside of the line or you can cut first and then use that as your seam allowance. So it just depends on what, you feel more comfortable doing. I just love using a rotary cutter, so I'm happy to chop stuff up any chance I get. So I cut on the line. And I have good practice on sewing curves, so that's another thing. If you do it like this is going to give you, especially if you make a bunch of these and give them as gifts, these will make great stocking stuffers for holidays. And this is just going to give you good curve sewing practice, okay? I'm going to go with a 2mm stitch length, so nice and short, since this is going to be the end construction stitches. And then I'm going to scoot my seam over like a really narrow seam allowance. And I'm going to start somewhere here. Back stitch at the beginning and at the end. And you're going through all the layers, okay? Okay. Entry point and exit point, close enough. Looks good. Let's go to the other side. Back stitch and go around. Notice when I'm doing a curve, I'm making sure that it stops with the needle in, and I'm just kind of twisting with the one hand. I'm not taking 2 stitches and then adjusting. The smoother you stitch this, the smoother that seam is going to look. Okay, if you choose to sew these curves with a larger seam allowance, you could also go in and trim that seam allowance to make it narrower like I have here, okay? I chose to just sew it scant, like really narrow, okay? But you can always sew a little bit bigger, like a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then just trim it down so you don't have a lot of bulk there, because that will affect, what the finished curve looks like. Now we flip the whole thing out, give it a press, and stitch up the hole. So here's how it goes. Reach into the opening. Then reach into the zipper opening. I'm grabbing the zipper pull and I'm going to open it more. Okay, so you're going through 2. This one and then the zipper itself, and then flip everything out. If you sew a really scant, like really narrow seam allowance like I did, then you don't even have to like cut notches. You don't need to use pinking, shears, none of that, because it'll still, there's not enough bulk there to affect the curve. You just have to do a really good job of pushing out all your fabric layers at the curve. So you can grab one of your point turner tools. Look at my fancy one that I got from Modern American Heritage with the clapper guy. Chris's tools are amazing. This is so light and nice feeling on the hand. And I can just run it in there to make sure I push all that fabric out. So before I start closing up the hole in the lining, I like to give it a press from here, from the inside. And because I have steam, let's use it. So I flatten down one side and steam to the inside of the pouch. That makes sense. Let me try not to affect my opening there. Other side. Let's zip it shut and give it some good shape. How cute does my purple zipper pull look on that pink zipper, y'all? Super cute. Now, one thing I do recommend is that you use a non-directional print for the exterior, because since you use the one solid rectangle of exterior fabric, it wraps around. So unless you don't care, to have little figurines upside down or text looking weird, then just use something that's, like these kind of prints that are like all over, non-directional. It don't really matter which way it's facing. Okay. Now I'm just going to pinch the fabric on the inside for the lining so we can zip it up. Yes, Mary says, so cute. I'll be making some of these. Definitely give it a go. So now in the lining fabric, you see that it almost wants to lie completely flat because we finger pressed that seam allowance open, and so it wants to sit that way anyway. You could do like a ladder stitch or an invisible binding stitch right here just to make it a little bit more seamless. You could have sewn, or not sewn, like glue basted the seam allowances together. I'm just gonna pinch it. It's at the bottom of the pouch anyway, and then I'm just gonna stitch super duper close to it. So I pinch end to end where my opening is, and then I kind of see what I'm doing with my fingers is pushing the rest of the fabric away so I can just slip in those 2 layers here. And then let me put the needle to the center because I have more control over it that way. And oops, sorry for the squeaky machine. And then you want to lengthen your stitch length because this is top stitch. You don't want to start bubbling up your fabric because you're using a teensy short straight stitch. So I'm going to do a back stitch, and I'm stitching super duper close to the folds here. Just enough to keep it closed, and keep an eye on where the opening ends so you can do another little back stitch there. Trim your threads, give it another good press. And so you see how that lining sits on the inside. Remember, you can always go with a bigger seam allowance if you really wanted to. But as long as you push that fabric into those corners with the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, I like the way it looks. Look at that. It sits really nicely in there. All right. And there it is, my little pencil pod zip pouch. These are similar, huh? With the same little purple color change. This is more of a purplish pink, but still. I hope that you all will give this project a try. Remember, we talked about using it for crayons, markers, pens. If you have stationary friends, students, anybody, look at this stuff. A ton. There's over a dozen crochet hooks in here with stitch markers and everything, and it still makes it so compact and pretty flat, okay, to slip into a project bag or whatever. You could do the same with your markers if you have an artist in the family, their pencils and things like that. I think it's a great scrap buster. We all know you got cotton fabric scraps out there. I'm talking to all the quilters of y'all, okay? Krista says, are you pushing something to make the iron steam? I am. This iron has steam buttons here on this side and on this side. So I press that. It has like a big reservoir on the back. It's like $1,000 iron. But anyway, I got it at QuiltCon last year. So if I'm going to be sewing and prepping projects and, you know, different step outs and things for my classes that I, you know, the digital courses that we sell, then I just load it up. I fill up the water tank reservoir, and that way I have it, access to it whenever I need it without, you know, the regular irons have auto shut off. So I use that one more for, you know, my work stuff. Okay. All right. Great. Oh, good. Vicky says, I'll be making a few for my marking pencils. That's a great idea. Yeah, if you go to sewing classes, retreats, crafts, and stuff like that, for card making tools, I can see this. For, you know, your sewing notions, your marking tools, this stuff, the choco liner, all that kind of stuff, you know. A couple spools of thread you can fit in here. All those kind of small notions, if you're going to a class or maybe to a craft night with friends, you can fit that stuff in here. I know it looks small, but once you make one, start packing it full, and I think you're going to be surprised to see what all you can put in here. So if you learned something from this video and you enjoyed this demo, definitely give this video a thumbs up. Whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, doesn't matter. Just give us a thumbs up. And if you are watching us on YouTube and are not yet subscribed to my channel, make sure that you subscribe so you don't miss out on any of my future videos, okay? And I do go live on Wednesdays, almost every single Wednesday here at 4 p.m. Eastern. Quick plug. Can you give them my front camera? Just a last minute plug, we started my latest class, the Chubby Charmer Tote. This is a pattern by Penny Sturgis of Quilts Illustrated. The first 5 videos are already up. A bunch of you have been posting in the Bag Club Facebook group your exterior panels with the charm packs that you're using. So definitely, if you are needing a super big, large summer tote, check the link in the description box below. You can still join the class. We've restocked the patterns 3 times already, so we do have them in stock. You can purchase the pattern. Obviously, it's not my design, so we sell the patterns separately, but the video course is mine, and that's what you sign up for separately if you want access to the 12 step-by-step video lessons that we are following this week to make the bag, okay? So videos never expire. Don't worry if you tune in late. If you still need this week and the weekend to gather up your supplies, you can still join us, okay? The link is in the description box below in case anybody else is interested in joining. I know a bunch of you are already in the class, and I can't wait to see your finished bags, all right? So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Music to Live by '08 says 7.5 inches. I'm thinking you're asking about this. Let me just give you a quick measurement right quick. The finish measurement from zipper to zipper edge here is 8.25. So from down here, you can definitely still get 7.5, and all the way out to the side here, you can get 7. Now, I was just measuring it. That's okay. We don't need to show them, but just showing you from zipper top to here, like top to bottom on the zipper in the middle, and the longest part is 8.25. So you can still get 7.5 somewhere down here, okay? So yeah, definitely. Okay, awesome. So thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. I appreciate your questions and your comments. Give the video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see y'all in the next video. Bye.